There's a saying, it's easier to love humanity than to love thy neighbor. Well, we love humanity and we're able to love our neighbor. Concealed carry holders are not just some of the most unselfish people around, we're some of the best citizens around. We get our civic obligation. We are arrested and convicted at rates far less than the general public. We are among the most politically active Americans. And we don't just vote, we talk to our elected representatives, we talk to our candidates, and frankly, candidates come and talk to us because they know that we will get out and we will vote on election day. And if they disappoint us, they misrepresent their views, they know that we will go to the polls and we will try to elect somebody else. It's not always a guarantee that we'll be able to do that because there are an awful lot of apathetic and uninformed and self-absorbed Americans. In fact, this is really starting to concern me. I've got a question, and if you know the answer, just shout it out. Who's the Vice President of the United States right now? That's an easy one, right? 2003, a survey of young Americans, 25% of them got that one wrong. All right, here's another one. Who is the Speaker of the House right now? 2003, 90% of young Americans got that one wrong. 1 in 10 were able to say who the Speaker of the House was. In fact, a survey by the, let me find this one here, the National Conference of State Legislatures. They surveyed 15 to 26-year-olds. Now, only 10% of them knew at the time that Dennis Hastert was the Speaker of the House. 64% of them could tell you who won American Idol. Let's put it into perspective. The executive summary of the National Conference of State Legislatures report said, quote, "This public opinion survey shows that young people do not understand the ideals of citizenship. They are disengaged from the political process. They lack the knowledge necessary for effective self-government, and their appreciation and support of American democracy is limited." And though it is scary, and it should be scary, because these are the people who are going to be voting in November. These are the people who are going to be voting in 2012 and 2016 for presidents. We've got a lot of people that they mentioned this was a 5-4 decision in Heller. So what happens when the 90% of Americans who can't tell you who the Speaker of the House is go to the polls? We keep telling them how important it is to vote, but we're not telling them how important it is to know what they're voting for. One of the books that I've been reading is called The Dumbest Generation. How the digital age stupefies young Americans and jeopardizes our future, or Don't Trust Anyone Under 30 is the subtitle. Now the premise of this book is that people are not reading. They're watching TV, they're going online, they're doing all of these things, but they're not reading. And Mark Berline says it's harder for us to learn when we're multitasking. Because, when we're online, we may be on Wikipedia, but we're also on Instant Messenger, and we've got YouTube up in another window, and we're doing 3 or 4 other things. We're not paying attention to any of them. Which brings me to my second book that I'm reading, which is called Distracted, The Erosion of Attention in the Coming Dark Age. Now, the premise of this book, again, we're not paying attention to things. We are losing our ability to think critically. We are losing our ability as a society to reason. I bring this up because, frankly, you don't fit the premise of either one of these books. You do pay attention. As gun owners, we have to pay attention. When we're at the range, we can't afford not to pay attention. We give 100% of our attention to what we're doing. And as concerned and active voters, we're paying attention to the political process. We're paying attention to candidates. We know who the Speaker of the House is. We know who the Vice President is. We know who our candidates for Attorney General are. We don't fit these books, but we may very well have to live with the consequences if society doesn't change. Now, the last book that I've been reading, I do read more than one book at a time, is this one. Charlton Heston, The Courage to Be Free. This is us. These are not. Now, Charlton Heston, and by the way, if you haven't read this book, the whole thing is fantastic, but there was There's one quote from Mr. Heston. He said, "We must fiercely preserve all the rights outlined in the Bill of Rights. I believe that's the only way our rights, including the first among equals right to keep and bear arms, can be delivered into the next century as pure and intact as they came to us at the beginning of the last century. I believe the freedoms that provided my generation with so much opportunity must remain the birthright of each generation that carries the torch forward. Traditionally, the passing of that torch is from an elder's hand down to an eager young one. I gladly offer my gnarled old hand." Charlton Heston knew the need to educate our next generation. He actually went on a college speaking tour and captured the hearts and minds of college students at Harvard and Georgetown, because he knew what could happen to this country if we forget. If we forget all of the knowledge, frankly, that the Founding Fathers had, that we are now choosing to ignore. And he knew that the courage to be free wasn't something that came naturally to us. It was easy for us to lose that courage. It was easy for us to give up our rights and to give up our responsibilities for this false promise of safety and security from somebody else's hands. So what happens if we lose our courage, and if we lose our moral compass? What happens if we lose our value of family and our friends and our community? I don't have the answer to that, but can we still fight for our rights if the people that we're talking to don't get what a right is? They don't get where a right comes from. They don't get why they should be, why they should even have rights at all. I don't know what happens if we don't do anything, but it seems to me like doing nothing really doesn't solve the problem of apathy. That's just being part of the problem. So I think we need to continue to follow Charlton Heston's advice. I think we need to keep doing, frankly, what you all are doing. Charlton Heston called it being in the arena, engaging the public, talking to our elected officials, our fellow Americans. We need to see ourselves, frankly, for what we are. Because we are not just gun owners, we are not just right-to-carry holders. We are, frankly, one of the last living embodiments of the American ideal that came to us from Thomas Jefferson, from George Washington. We can look at the Declaration of Independence. We get it. We don't disagree. There are a lot of Americans who look at the Declaration of Independence and wonder why we're still following something that was written 232 years ago. I don't think too many of us do that. I think we get it. So if we're ambassadors for the Second Amendment, if we understand that the Declaration still matters, that it is still the spirit of the law. I mean, we're supposed to still follow the Constitution, which I consider to be the letter of the law, but I consider the Declaration to be the spirit of the law. And if we continue to follow this, and if we teach our children, if we can lead by example, then hopefully others will follow. Hopefully they'll follow because, frankly, our lives are richer. Our lives are not defined by what's on TV or who won the Super Bowl or even what your favorite talk show host is going to talk about at 9 o'clock tonight. Our lives are richer because we understand this is it. We only get one. After this, we don't know. We have faith, we believe that we may go to a better place, but this is a gift. Our life is a gift. And it should be treasured. Some sociologists call the millennial generation the do-over generation, because they've been raised with the ability to restart a game. They can, if their email gets too clogged, they can create a new email address. They can create a new Facebook account or a new MySpace page. They don't get that some things in life are permanent. They don't get that the end of life is permanent.